Networking and marketing made simple is for you, the business owner who has a product, a service, or a message that you believe in. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we'll take a behind-the-scenes look into the real-world marketing and networking tactics and strategies for getting what you have in front of you to a lot more people. Thanks for spending time with me, and now let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. Super excited for today's episode. It is another interview episode. And the guest I have for you today, we met on LinkedIn. We chatted a few times offline. I had the honor and privilege to be on her podcast. And the way that you network and you collaborate is you always return the favor. And that is why Eleni is here with me today. And what I love about what she does is she calls herself a rapid release coach, and more specifically for those high performers that I don't like using the word underachieving, but they could be doing more and better things in their life, in their career, personally and professionally, due to some stories of their past and some past traumas that continue to hold them back. And that is her zone of genius. So with that being said, Eleni, welcome to today's episode.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
So obviously, we're going to dive into all things in being a rapid release coach, but more so what my audience loves knowing is, what do you feel that through your journey and where you are right now and moving forward with growing your business, what do you feel was the catalytic moment for you that turned that light bulb on that has set you on the path that you're now on?
Good question. I think it was maybe a small series of events that got me to the place. So I was struggling with my own trauma for a long time, and my son was born at 26 weeks. That was traumatic. He's fine now. He's gigantic. But I didn't know at the time, that was 14 years ago, that I was experiencing trauma. I just thought I had to suck it up and push it down and get on with stuff, right? The kind of person I am, like action-packed, let's go. But I couldn't go anymore. And I started to, even once we brought him home from the hospital, there was still anxiety there. There was still, panic. I was fearful all the time. And then it kind of morphed into sort of like a self-hate type of situation where I unconsciously was blaming myself, I think, right, for not being able to keep him safe and, all that stuff, which is completely unconscious. Of course, consciously, it wasn't anything I did. So then it sort of started to morph into an eating disorder. I was just really restricting food and, hating how I looked and all that stuff. So several years has happened, and all I knew is that I didn't want to go there and talk about my stuff over and over and over again. And I just somehow inherently knew that wasn't my path. So I was at a networking event I was a personal trainer in-house, and I was at a networking event, and I heard a woman talking about some magical process that would take away all your problems, and it was content free. So you didn't talk about your stuff over and over, and it just really connected to me. And I'm like, oh my God. So I started working with her, and I had no idea what we were doing. So I'd come home after it, and my husband would be like, so what did you guys do? And I'd say, I don't know, but I feel really. So it worked really fast. So what she was doing was neurolinguistic programming, timeline therapy, and I think some hypnosis as well. And then I became fascinated on, I need to know how things work. And so I was really fascinated by how it all worked and why it worked. And I didn't understand it. I'd never heard of it before in my life. And I ended up doing my first level of certification. And I would say after that, my first level, I had that light bulb moment where clients were just kind of coming to me. People were just telling me their stuff and wanting to work with me as a coach. I was still doing the personal training, and it just was not doing it for me anymore. And then, working with my first few clients, and they came to me with some horrifying trauma. I was sort of like trial by fire, right? And it worked amazingly for them. And I thought, I just had a feeling like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is where I belong. And so, I've been through my own stuff, and then it kind of led me to what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's really like a long-winded answer question.
So, we all have certain traumas in our life that either define us for our entire life, and we end up never getting out of our own way, and we stay stuck. And that fulfillment that everyone should feel and should live, as you said, stuff's down, and it becomes diminished, and you don't really know what your true potential and what your true life could have been. But then there's other people who say, you know what, I'm going to turn the mirror around. I'm going to look at what's going on, right in the eye, face it, and do what is required to overcome that so I can move forward and progress. But my bigger question is, what do you feel is the main reason why there's so many people that shy away from facing their trauma, and rather almost, I don't want to use the word torture, but also how they self-inflict how they feel, reliving that trauma over and over again when they know they would be better off by just releasing it? Why are people so afraid to face it and move on from it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And there's a couple of things going on, I think. One of the things is I feel like people don't know that there's a better way. So I think a lot of people think they've got to go to therapy and rehash their trauma over and over again, or do, what is that therapy called, where you have to, it's like immersion therapy or something, where you have to talk about your trauma in the exact same way over and over and over.
I think they sometimes call it timeline therapy. There's a certain NLP practice. My wife is NLP certified, where you do timeline therapy, where you go back to certain instances in your life.
That's what I do. But I mean, there's a therapy that is done, and it was started, I think, with Warvest, for us to go in and actually relive the trauma over and over and over again. And we know that just reinforces that negative neurology, right? That's not what you want to do. And so I think a lot of people are having to deal with their trauma because they think they're going to be re-traumatized in dealing with it. With what I do, that doesn't happen, right? You don't re-traumatize yourself. You're not reliving it, and we do it one time. And the other thing is that, trauma becomes your identity a lot of times, right? And so a lot of, my clients have a fear almost that we have to work of, who will I be without this, right? If I'm not the one who was assaulted, or the one with the horrible childhood, right? Who am I going to be? What's going to happen? So it's almost that unknown, right? It's your unconscious mind obviously is running all of these patterns, right? And so, there's a really deep-seated fear about that. And it's quite deep, because consciously we say, of course I want to get rid of this, right? Unconsciously your brain's like, oh, I don't know. And so I think there's a few things going on there.
Now, again, you've worked with a lot of people, and I think that there may be some people listening to this right now that can resonate, and they have certain traumas, they have certain things that have happened to them and for them. And I think the bigger question that sometimes people think about is, well, how drastic of a change can my life become, or how drastic in the opposite direction can I go if I move through and heal from these traumas? What would your answer be to that, as far as how much progress can someone make in life, in business, in their relationships, if they do release those traumas that have been holding them back?
Well, I would say it's up to them. right? It's whatever they want, which is so cool, right? Because now you can decide to create what you want to create instead of being prisoner to those old patterns, right? Those old neurological pathways. And so, when I start working with a client, I can see for them, right, what they can be, but I have to help them be able to see it for themselves. And sometimes they can't right away, right? I can't want it for them more than they want it for themselves. So, I can certainly help them get there and release resistance around it, but really it's limitless once you deal with that stuff that's holding you back. And the changes in my clients can be quite subtle at first, so when we have a check-in, I'll say maybe, okay, so how does the trauma feel? And they'll be like, oh, I don't know, I haven't thought about it, right? How powerful, something that's been running your whole life that you think about every day, now you just, oh, it's not there, right? And so it's noticing that and building on that to start to create the life that you want and put the positive back into your brain.
Now, someone listening to this that's kind of just thinking a lot about everything that you're saying, is there, this is not a loaded question, I just, would love to hear your thought on this. Is there a trauma too deep or too painful that cannot be overcome? Or no matter what the trauma is, no matter how deep of the wounds the person has or are, do you feel that anyone, no matter what the trauma is, can overcome that and live a very meaningful and prosperous life?
Yes, I do. They just have to be willing to do the work, right? They just have to be willing to sort of, be invested in my process and be able to work through it. And it's not a painful process by any means, right? It's quite, I don't know the word for it. It's the opposite of painful. It is, I guess, easy-ish, right? So, yeah, 100%. They just have to be willing, right, to let go of that stuff and to step into something new. But, yes, certainly I haven't personally worked with somebody who was not able to release their trauma.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind for me is clearing, almost like clearing out whatever cobwebs or things that are there that shouldn't be. Now, going through the process yourself, dealing with everything that, and it's funny, we lived very parallel lives. I was a personal trainer. I was a,
Yeah, I know. It's funny.
But also, something that I don't talk about often is I had some eating disorder issues myself when I was a teenager. And when I was between the ages of 12 and 14, there was a two-year period where I had a very, very strange relationship with food. I had a deep, deep fear of becoming fat when I come from a very healthy and fit family. So, genetically, it really wasn't in the makeup for me to become fat.
Yeah.
But, I developed some really strange eating patterns, and I had to work through it and get therapy, and it helped. And it was funny. I was good for a long time. And when I got into the health and wellness industry, when I was 19, it started to resurface again because, when you're a personal trainer, you have to look the part. So you have to go on strict eating regimens. You have to do things that are a little bit outside the box than a normal person would, measuring their food, weighing their food. And then when I crossed over into the competitive bodybuilding world, where when people think bodybuilding, they think, eating all the time and lifting heavy weights. Yeah, that's an aspect of it. But when you are preparing for a show and you are, quote unquote, dieting down, this is where my bad habits crept back up, because
Yeah.
I had to step on the scale. And I remember my mom, when I was younger, she actually threw away all the scales in the house because
Mm-hmm.
I was getting on the scale every single morning and weighing myself. And it became an obsession.
Yeah.
And when you train for a show and you're working with a coach, I had to weigh myself twice a day. I had to weigh myself every morning after fasted cardio, and
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the night after my full day of food intake. And, you know, I was on that sort of routine for about a year and a half because I did multiple shows. And it
Yeah.
took, I didn't have to go to therapy this time because I remembered some of the things that I had learned back when I was younger, but I was able to get myself out of it. But it wasn't fun. But there are always going to be traumas that you move past and move through. But the one thing that I
Sure.
want everyone to recognize is they're always there. They're always there. They
Yeah.
never they never fully go away. You just learn how to cope and how to self-recognize and move past it in a way that you never would have learned before. So for you, going through the process yourself, which then makes you the type of person that can take other people through, because you have to self-experience it yourself.
Oh, yeah.
What do you feel for you was the greatest learning lesson from going through all the processes that you went through and coming out on the other side better, moving past and moving through your trauma?
I think one of the things is that, I wasn't broken. And that I can be in control of my life and, my thoughts and my emotions. Because I think that before I kind of felt like, things just happened to me, or, well, that's just, like this person made me feel this way, or this happened and it made me do this, right? Instead of being able to take that ownership and be like, no, hold on, I can choose that, right? So when you get rid of that baggage and all that stuff and all that trauma, now you have choice on how you want to be affected, right? And so, I mean, we're all human, and but even when I have a reaction that later I wasn't happy about, I can now look at it and be like, okay, that was interesting. What can I learn from this, right? As opposed to feeling like you don't have control. Things are just going to happen. I'm going to be constantly triggered, and the world is a scary place where I'm a leaf in the wind, And so I think that so many people probably unconsciously believe those things. And I think that my big learning was that doesn't have to be like that.
So walk us through some, I would say, foundational things that people do. So say the person that's listening isn't completely ready or open to rapid release coaching,
Mm-hmm.
but they know that they have some trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think self-care is one of the best cares that we can do, whether it's journaling or meditation or yoga or something.
Yeah.
What do you feel from a foundational aspect are some simple things someone listening to this episode can do to help not only recognize and acknowledge the trauma they may have, but what are some simple things they can do to start acknowledging it and moving past it?
I always recommend meditation. And so, I mean, Insight Timer is a great resource, right? You can just, it's free. You can type in whatever, you want to work through. I'm a huge fan of guided meditation. And then I have ones I do individually, right, for my clients, myself. I just figured out GarageBand, so I'm very excited about that. And I'm also a big fan of journaling to work through stuff, right? Like actually writing things down and looking at it and, being able to work through it, I find really, really powerful. And I also have a practice I recommend. Have you heard of morning pages? You probably have. Oh, it's really cool. It's from a book, so I'm not making it up, and I can't remember the author's name. But if people Google it, they'll find her. And basically, what it is every morning you set a timer for however long. Maybe start at 10 minutes, and you just write. And you can write green, blue, green, blue. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're just constantly stream of consciously writing. And then you put it away, you don't read it, right? You do it every morning. And it completely just clears your head. It's so interesting. And it really sets up your whole day. One of my girlfriends, my best friend, told me about it. Her mom has dementia, and she was living with her mom for a while to help out. And she realized that when her mom did that for 20 minutes a day, she had a good day cognitively. When she didn't, her thoughts were sort of all over the place. So morning pages is also a really interesting way, I find, to really help with that overwhelming anxiety, that clarity. So those are the things that I always love.
So let's talk about some of the, maybe the biggest aha moment for you, not only on the, I would say, self-healing side of how you moved past your traumas, but now the work that you're doing with people. What has been the most gratifying thing for you? Not only the work that you have done on yourself, but now the work that you're able to do with others.
I love so much when people come to me and they've, tried everything. I'm often the last resort. And people are like, all right, I've tried everything, whatever, let's just do it. And a couple of things happen often during our first session, because my job is to see patterns, right? Because normally, as you know, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so, right, the same emotions and patterns and beliefs are going to cycle through all different areas of your life. And, a lot of clients will say, oh my God, I've been in therapy for 5 years. Why has no one told me that? Or whatever, right? I think of things differently. It's just a different process. And then I love when people's traumas are gone. I mean, there's no better feeling to me. I'm like on a high, afterwards, when we release it, or we release an emotion that has been so heavy. They've been carrying it, like shame or guilt or abandonment. And people say to me, it feels like I took a backpack off, and I can see the physiological changes in them. When we release, I have one client, she gets red in the face when the emotion releases. She has such a tell, right? But you can see the shifts in people, and then for my clients to go on and be able to live their life now without that stuff holding them back. I mean, to me, it feels amazing. I'm in love with it.
So if someone was interested to learn more about how you help people with the rapid release therapy, and they are a high performer that wants to do more and they want to be more, what's the best way for them to connect with you, either on social or offline, and how can they find out about your programs?
Yeah, so my website is www.breakthroughwitheleni.com. My socials are at breakthrough, THRUELENI, at Breakthrough Eleni. So you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. And yeah, reach out to me through my website, reach out to me on my socials, and we can chat.
Awesome. And for the audience that's listening, all that information that Eleni just talked about will be in the description of this episode. So you do not have to go too far. And again, if you're listening to this and you know that you have some unresolved traumas that you know intuitively are holding you back in some way, shape, or form in your life, then I highly, highly encourage you to reach out to Eleni so she can assist you. Now, Eleni, final question before we sign off today. What does success truly mean to you?
I feel like people have an idea that success is a thing that happens to you. Like making money or, being able to go on holiday or whatever. And those are all great. But to me, success is something I feel inside. And to me, success is a whole bunch of different types of feelings. It feels like joy, like happiness, like pride. And that's when I feel success. Does that make sense?
I talk about it all the time. Success is not something that you have. Success is a feeling inside of you. And anyone can feel successful at any time in their life if they choose to. So with that, Eleni, thank you so much for coming on to the program today. Grateful for your connection. Again, grateful that I was able to come onto your show as well. And I just appreciate everything that you shared today with my audience. And I just love the servant coach and leader that you are, helping people truly become their best. So thank you again for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So remember, everyone, if you want to get in touch with Eleni, all of that information of how to get in touch with her will be in the description of this episode. But also, please do hop on to whatever listening platform you're on, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, wherever you're listening. Leave a rating and review. Let us know what you loved most and what you took away from this episode most, so we can continue to do more of those things. So everyone, please enjoy the rest of your days, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much again for checking out today's episode. And if you are listening through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are, please leave me a rating and review. Let me know what you loved, what you would like to see improved, or ideas you have for future episodes. And if you are interested in taking your business to the next level, don't hesitate to go to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me, where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we can work together. And don't forget to check out my wife, Nancy, and mine, our free community on Facebook called LinkedIn Leads for Life. We would love to see you in there. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you, everyone, for your support. Grateful for each and every one of you.